Welcome to the Bowie Business Journal. I'm your host, Pauline Markward, with the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today with my special guest, Len Lucchi. Welcome, Len.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'd like to hear a little bit about yourself. We're both S-section kids, and why don't we start there?
So my parents moved to Bowie in 1962 when there was about 1,000 people in the town. And Route 50 was actually where Route 450 is now, and you would go for miles and not see anything, and then you saw these model homes. And it was a different world, but I've enjoyed living here pretty much ever since.
Really? Okay, I'm here from 1970. I didn't know Route 50 came through 450?
It was called Route 50 then, yeah.
Really? Did that also go up through Defense Highway? Into Annapolis too?
I don't know.
I've stumped you already.
Right. But that road from Defense Highway to Annapolis is the road that George Washington took when he went to Annapolis to resign his commission.
Really?
Which is how he knew that we were to have a democracy and not a military government.
And you're an attorney.
Right.
Okay. And
I've been practicing in Prince George's County. This year is 35 years. Started out on Main Street in Upper Marlboro, where they roll up the sidewalks at 5 o'clock. And then I went to work for the county government. I was the county attorney. And then for the past dozen years, I've been at O'Malley Miles, one of the larger law firms in Prince George's County.
What type of law do you practice?
So the nice word for what I do is called government relations. The not so nice word, they call it lobbying, which gets a bad rap. But my job is to represent my clients before the Maryland General Assembly and help work with the people who are elected to office and give them my clients' viewpoints and try and get bills passed or try and get bills killed. And I've been doing it for a long time, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I understand you also are one of Bowie's lobbyists.
Right. I represent the city of Bowie in Annapolis for the past 10 years. Try and get them money for worthy projects in the city and protect them from bad legislation and help get good legislation passed.
Do you have anything you want to brag about?
Well, thanks to the leadership of our senator and delegates at Annapolis, Senator Peters, and delegates Valentino, Smith, Holmes, and Valerio, we got $200,000 to help fix up the Bowie Senior Center and $100,000 to help establish the Emergency Operations Center at City Hall. So those are two big wins.
Good, good. Thank you for working for Bowie.
Good people. I enjoy it. It's good to help out my hometown.
Did you always want to be in government relations?
Pretty much since college. I always wanted to be a lawyer since I watched Perry Mason as a kid. And then in college, I interned in Annapolis for Bowie's first senator, Senator Conroy. And I had such a great time that I never really left.
Yeah. What was that like, being a kid there?
Well, when I first went down there, I had this dream of someday being a senator or delegate. And then it just took a couple of months to realize I really enjoyed being behind the scenes down there much more because I just have a hard time sitting in one place for a long time, and the legislators have to sit on the floor every morning and listen to speeches, and then in the afternoon they sit at hearings and have people come before them and testify, and I would just have a hard time sitting down and listening that long. So what I do is much more fun.
You mentioned working with Senator Peters. What is that like? He seems to be a really good guy, but what's it like working closely with a senator?
Well, he's got a great staff that helps him out, and he's an unusual politician because he's very quiet and mild-mannered and almost shy. So it's different from, he's not a boisterous backslapper. But I mean, I like that about him, and he's very matter-of-fact, straightforward.
Yeah. So, well, being a lobbyist for Bowie, you also work closely with the city council. What is that like?
Oh, they're great. I mean, I enjoy working with them. I get their input of what they're interested in and pursue that and try and coordinate to get them to come down to Annapolis. And it works well. The city is part of the Maryland Municipal League that fights for all cities and towns in the state, and so we worked with other cities. And
Being a native of Bowie, what was it like as a young adult being an attorney here, and what you're seeing, the differences now, 30 years later?
Well, I mean, when I bought my parents' house in the 80s, there weren't a lot of restaurants around.
Oh, what was the restaurant that you remember?
Well, I mean, growing up, there was always Rips, and there was always, and then there was always the Dutch Pantry by the Holiday Inn.
Yeah. What elementary school did you go to?
Somerset Elementary School.
Yeah.
I was the first student council president at Somerset Elementary School, and now it's Somerset Park, and now it has housing for people my age, so it comes full circle.
I think I went for, maybe it was a half a year when I started at Tulip Grove Elementary, and then we moved from the T section to the S section. And then that's when they started in the late, I guess, 70s, early 80s, closing our elementary schools.
Closed on a lot of them, yeah.
Plus.
But back in the day of the Bowie racetrack, Bowie was nationally known because it was in all the papers and would report the races going on at Bowie racetrack. And I mean, it was on the map then. And now it is with the Bay Sox, too.
Yeah.
Went to St. John's High School in D.C.
Yeah.
Dressed up like a mailman.
Good education, though?
Oh yeah, it was good. I was able to get away from not wearing the uniform because I was on the debate team, and we would always travel for debate tournaments. And as long as we brought the principal back a trophy, he would let us take a couple days before the tournament to get ready for it, and a couple days afterwards to recover. So I wasn't around much my last couple of years, but I enjoyed it.
Will I ever win an argument with you?
Oh, you always do.
It's because you allow me to win?
No. I don't recall ever arguing with you, actually.
Yeah, I'm pretty passive.
This is a comedy show, ladies and gentlemen.
We try. So you talked about horses. Did you ever ride horses?
I did, growing up in Bowie. There was an old farm on Old Chapel Road that's now the Saddlebrook division, subdivision. And I took lessons for a few years and would trot, then canter, then gallop, and jump the fences, and I loved it.
So you're English?
No, Western.
A Western?
Yeah.
Okay. I just kind of figured we were more formal here, but I guess not. I'm Western, too.
And my parents would ride with me. We had a good time. And then I didn't ride for years until I was in high school, and then didn't ride for years, so we went to Iceland and rode these tiny little horses on the glaciers.
Yeah. Odd question. Do you remember if they wore shoes? Not the ones with your kids, but in Iceland.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It was a special breed of horse that was brought there that you don't really find anyplace else.
I'm wondering if it's because it's on a glacier, they have a special shoe. But. So where do you see, we've talked some about where Bowie was, where do you see Bowie going? Or let's stop here. Where do you see, how do you view Bowie now?
Well, here's the thing about the city. When my parents moved here in 1962, it was about 1,000 residents. Now it's pushing 60,000. Every time it expands for more people, the last people say, we want to be the last ones here. We don't want to expand. And that's happened for 50 years. And so the fact that people are saying that now is really nothing new. But Bowie is almost all developed out. So then the next step will be redeveloping, fixing up the older neighborhoods, maybe putting in more sidewalks, maybe putting some signs for the different subdivisions, and just fixing it up. Especially Huntington, Old Bowie needs, I think, some major redevelopment. We have entertainment venue as an anchor, but the whole area just needs to be redone. I think it'd be a great arts and entertainment district, bringing artists there and just kind of redevelop the area.
I agree. And there's an ice cream shop there that I love. She makes all of her ice cream homemade.
Oh yeah, the Russells are terrific.
Yeah.
They picked up those skills in the military in Germany and brought it back here, and it's amazing.
Yeah, she runs a tight ship over there. So pretty interesting where Bowie has come from to where we are now. Let's talk a little bit about Bowie's future and where you see us going. And then there's also an opinion. There's a 5-year, a 10, and a 20. So where do you really see us going as this progresses? Our city grows and matures.
In the future, Bowie is going to start becoming an older community, and with that comes challenges, and you have to redevelop things and fix things up, and that's going to be more important than the previous development challenges. Fixing up roads, making more housing codes to make sure the houses are kept up. And it's a different challenge, but it's just as important to keep things vibrant that way. And there are places that I think the city could look at in terms of acquiring, for instance, the Bowie racetrack property has been now sitting there for a while, and the racetrack owners have fixed it up with nicer fences and taken out some of the vegetation. But what a great area for the city to acquire along the Patuxent River and the heritage there, and then the need for more parks. The other thing is Bowie has a great parks and recreation system, but city residents pay for that as well as paying for the parks and recreation system with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. So in effect, they're paying twice. And I think we need to, when we're talking about expanding our recreational amenities, we need to work it out so we don't pay twice anymore. And if that means acquiring the Park and Planning Commission facilities in Bowie and have it all be one and just pay one set of taxes, maybe that's what needs to be done. I mean, there's a need for more.
Is that going to be a fight, a battle?
Sure, because the Park and Planning Commission's been around since the 1920s. And it originally was set up when the county government was not a charter government and didn't have a lot of its own services. But I think now the time has come to get rid of an anachronistic system and move forward. And so, because the citizens in Bowie pay park and planning tax and they pay the city tax for the park and recreation amenities, people in other cities in Prince George's County only pay once. Greenbelt and District Heights and Laurel have their own parks and recreation facilities, but they don't pay the park tax. And so I think that's, if we're going to put a lot more investment in those amenities, we got to look at that. And there's a need for more basketball courts, but we have 3 community centers in South Bowie, Bowie, and Huntington that many times are just empty or not at full capacity. And so if they're all integrated into the city rec system, more people could be helped.
Yeah. True, it's sometimes just getting the information out that what we have available,
Right.
looking in the right places.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how, I mean, people don't know how many miles of bike and hiking trails we have in the city, or how many different parks there are.
And actually, our police force does police them. They have the electric bikes.
Right.
And they go down the paths with them. So they're quiet, and but that's good to know that we're safe on our paths, too.
Our city police department has become such a strong amenity for the city for the past 12 years they've been around, that I think neighboring areas, neighborhoods now are looking to Bowie being annexed, so they got to have that police service as well.
Yeah.
It's been made such a change in the quality of life in Bowie. Before the police department, before the city established its own police department, it was part of the county District 2, and on any Saturday night there would be 2 Prince George's police cars patrolling Bowie, and they got called out to a call in Lanham. They would both go there, and the city wouldn't be served. Now, there's like as many as 10 beats in Bowie, 10 cars going, and then on Saturday night, if they have the overlap, you'd have 20 police cars, so from 2 to 20, and that's why, in the 12 years, response time has gone down, and there haven't been any, bad incidents with the city police, and they're very proactive with the community outreach.
They do serve with integrity.
Right.
And I think they're reminded of it every time they walk by their car and they see it. It's
Right.
there.
At the time the city set up the police department, it was the largest police department set up from scratch, going from 0 to full strength like that. They try to find another example of that around the country, and they couldn't really find one when they're sending it up.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another good part of being in the city. I mean, people who live outside the city or just outside the city in some of the unincorporated areas are envious because the city has 2 trash pickups a week. Outside is just 1. City has great leaf collection. Snow removal's faster than outside the city. So, I mean, it's an attractive thing to be part of the city.
Yes, that's true. Anything I've put out, they've picked up. So I've lived in other communities where you actually have to take it to special sites, etc.
And when they first had the referendum for the city police department in 2005, it actually said on the ballot that if you vote for the police department, your taxes may go up to pay for it. And it said how much you'd have to pay. And it turns out the taxes never had to go up to pay for the police department because it's this thing called a tax differential, that if the city takes over more services, the county reduces its property tax. And so actually, when we include the county versus the city, the total tax bill has actually gone down for city residents and not up. But it's those kind of things that people need to know about, so people stay more focused and positive about the city instead of trying to tear things down.
So do you think that'll be on this next election cycle, the 2019, to annex into Bowie some of the other unincorporated? Is that the proper term, annex them in?
I mean, they could be annexed if the property owners agree to be annexed. It doesn't need to go on the ballot. But
oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the mayor used to joke that Bowie could be from the Beltway to the Bay someday.
Yeah, that's why we're the Greater Bowie.
Right, right.
Well, speaking of the Greater Bowie, you were also president of the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce. Could you remind me what years?
Oh,
sorry.
I think it was 2013 to 2015. And I was on the board for 8 years. And it's a great organization, still is a great organization. You do a great job keeping everybody
Thank you.
In line. And Bowie has a very vibrant business community that contributes to the community. I mean, Bowie businesses are great corporate citizens and believe in giving back to the community that the customers go and frequent their businesses. And it was a great experience being the president of the chamber. We had a great board, great members, great events. Chamber members get to be advocates for Bowie businesses. They get to learn about new ideas and new trends in businesses, and they get to do a lot of networking. And so all 3 were great experiences for me.
Good. I think sometimes people lose sight of, I guess, the importance of networking and how to network. We do so many things online now, but it's that eye contact, that person-to-person, the trust that I think the Chamber provides when we have our networking.
Absolutely.
events.
There's no substitute for face-to-face contact.
Agree. And we have some pretty good events. You had spoken about Senator Peters earlier. We had the legislative happy hour in January. And that's fun because you get to have really 2 hours uninterrupted with your sitting senator and your delegates, where you can talk about anything you want to. Nobody else is pulling them aside. That we get to go sit in on a session and they introduce us and we wave, and it's a fun time. But it's also a very important time for businesses. They can network with each other there. But again, just to have the ear of your elected officials sometimes is very, very important.
And it's valuable to them to hear from us.
Yes.
And what we're interested in, and they take that in consideration and they introduce bills or take votes.
Yes, absolutely. And then also the chamber, we have generally a State of the City event and a State of the County event. And again, you get that time with your elected officials where you might not get it any other way. So,
Right.
Yeah.
It was great when Rashawn Baker visited us recently and spoke about how important Bowie was to the county and as the economic engine of the county. And
Yes.
it was great that he recognized that.
Yes, absolutely. And he always makes time for us. Matter of fact, I think all of our elected officials make time for Bowie.
The mayor has been very, very supportive of the chamber over the years, and is always steering new members to the chamber, and
Absolutely.
and talks it up. And every year he has some new jokes at the state of the city.
That's very true, and we appreciate his support. Without him, you know, without a strong business community, also, where are we? We have, what, 1,500 businesses in Bowie, and a little over 57,000 residents. So we're a strong community. It's good.
Right. Twice the population of Annapolis. The thing about Bowie, though, it's the largest city in the state of Maryland without its own land use authority, which is kind of an antiquated system. I mean, there are towns in Maryland of 50 people that have its own land use authority, and yet Bowie does not. And so, you know, one of these days, that'll have to change.
How hard is that? Because we would have to, we as in the city of Bowie, would have to get that away from the county, correct? Is that
And
a
the
vote,
Park
a
and
law?
Planning Commission. So you'd have to pass a state law, and it's always been difficult to change the status quo. Bowie will really need to demonstrate that it has the ability to make its own land use decisions and do it in a responsible way, consistent with the law, and not just be swayed by the latest outrage of whatever the latest thing is on social media.
So how does one go about doing that?
It takes getting a consensus of all the players. I mean, the county executive will have to agree, and the county council, and the delegations in Annapolis. So it's not an easy thing to do because we only have 3 delegates and 1 senator, but it takes 12 delegates and 5 senators from Prince George's County to say it's okay to do it.
Okay, yes. So we are actually getting ready to have a new county executive come in. So maybe I guess it's time. People are interested to start with the new.
Right.
And move forward with it. So that's going to be some interesting changes for Bowie when we talk about what is Bowie going to look like in 20 years. I'll be 70. So but it'll be interesting. I don't think we do too many knockdown and rebuilds in Bowie yet.
No, but it's going to come.
Yeah.
And then I think there's only so many more cars that could be put on the road. And I think Bowie is ideal for a stop for a high-speed busway from Washington to Annapolis, with a stop at the Bowie Park and Ride, because it's just a limit. And you know, originally the idea was that the Metro would go from New Carrollton all the way out to Bowie, and our city fathers in the 60s nixed that. But imagine how different it would be if we had trains that coming right to Bowie. So I think high-speed bus is something that could be done and can be self-sustaining by having an additional lane on Route 50 where you'd have to pay to get in the faster lane, and then that money can be used to build a busway from Washington to Annapolis, and not at a huge cost, but the bus would just stop, having its own lane, and you could get to Washington fast, or even get to Annapolis. I mean, get to Annapolis fast anyway. It's mainly for Washington, but for people from Annapolis to get to Washington as well.
Yeah, I probably spend the majority of my time in Annapolis, if I'm not in Bowie, and the other bits in Washington. But I like Washington. Whenever I have people come in to visit, there's some that want to go visit the Naval Academy, and then there's others that want to see our nation's capital.
And Baltimore's a great city.
Oh yeah, we can't leave out Baltimore.
Very different from Washington, but it's a great city. I spent 7 years there for college and law school, and still love going back to the different neighborhoods.
Right.
Given my heritage, I'd love to go to Little Italy, but I mean, there's some great places.
Yeah.
Great art museums, great historic places like Fort McHenry.
Oh, and there's baseball.
And there's baseball, right?
Yeah.
Forgot there is a team besides the Bay Sox.
Yeah. Well, there's the Iron Pigs. They're out of Pennsylvania. So, but I'm Bay Sox first. Let's, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
the Bay Sox have become such an anchor for Bowie and such a way of branding the city. But it's different. When the Bay Sox first came here in 1994, there were no Washington Nationals. There was not a minor league team in Waldorf, and so there wasn't women's basketball. There was less competition. So now, the fact that Bay Sox has still done so well over the years, despite these new competing places to go, it really speaks well to how they've managed the team and how they run the operations there.
Absolutely. And opening night this year, the weather was fantastic for it. The sun was out. It was a perfect day.
It's like 40 degrees, wasn't it?
Well, the sun was out and it was beautiful. It got a little chilly at night, and then I think it went 13 innings.
Right.
So yeah, that was, what a way to start. But yeah, Brian and Adam have done absolutely amazing with us. Very supportive of the chamber.
You know, I love what I do, and I love working with government, and maybe in some other way, but I just love what I do. I don't see ever really slowing down.
Yeah.
I love the city. I love hanging out here. I was raised here. Raised my kids here. I don't know if they'll want to bring their families here. Well, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm so glad I came home. Yeah, Bowie's a good town.
The thing about Bowie is it's one of the few areas that is really a truly integrated area. I mean, the churches are integrated, the veterans group, I mean, everybody is together. I mean, you can have demographic changes, but it doesn't always mean you have everyone doing things together, eating and worshiping and playing and recreation. But in Bowie, everybody's really together, and it's really an example, I think, for everywhere. When you hear about bad incidents, you don't hear about bad incidents in Bowie.
There has never been another place, like just growing up near the Chesapeake Bay, right here between Baltimore, Washington, and Annapolis. Bowie is it. We're in the hub of everything. We have a little bit of a nightlife here, but it's a good community to raise kids. And I agree with you, there's nothing like Bowie. Every place that I've lived, nowhere else have I ever run into people that say, "What section did you grow up in?"
Right.
And then there's always that feeling of, oh, well, we're automatically friends because you grew up on this street and I grew up on one street over, or we went to the same elementary school together. We are really crazy about our town. We love Bowie.
I think one thing we could do to even be better is we need to bring Bowie State more into the town.
Oh, wouldn't that be fabulous?
Right. I mean, first it should be annexed into the town, even though it wouldn't change our finances because it's state property. But I just think there needs to be more of a sense of inclusion and make Bowie more of a college town. It's such a great place with such a great heritage. I actually went to kindergarten at Bowie State before they had public kindergarten. It was kind of like an experimental laboratory school. And,
is that what's wrong?
What's that?
I said, is that what's wrong?
Yeah, right.
The experiment.
The experiment failed. No, there was actually one of those two-way mirrors where the sociologists would look inside and see how an integrated kindergarten classroom worked. And then we'd be interviewed about it. And I didn't know that there's a difference between my friends and I in terms of what they're asking. So I said, I don't really know what you're talking about. But it was, so, and then they started public kindergarten, and then they added kindergarten classrooms to all the elementary schools in Bowie. But I remember that because our school bus would go by the Bowie racetrack and we would see the horses racing. And I asked my parents, can I go there? And they said, no, you have to be 21 because there's gambling. And I said, what's gambling? They said, well, that's where people put in money, and sometimes they lose their shirts because they lose all their money. So we're going by in the school bus, and I started shouting out, and the cars are lined up to go on the racetrack, go back, you'll lose your shirt. So those are the great memories of Bowie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Bowie. So, well, we have to wrap up, but thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been fun.
Oh, it has been fun. Thank you. Appreciate you very much, and thank you for your service to the Chamber and to the City of Bowie.
Enjoy it.
And thank you for joining us on the Bowie Business Journal, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.